Welcome to Botches Off-Road. Join us as we talk about everything from gear reviews to trail stories, tent camping to rock landing, and everything to do with the outdoors. Today's show is pretty different. Our guest doesn't go wheeling every weekend. He doesn't have any crazy trail stories, but he has seat time and more off-road vehicles than any of us combined. We are very excited to welcome Zack from Shooting Cars onto the pod.
Thanks for having me.
How's it going,
Looking
Zack?
forward to it. Doing well.
Yeah, I figured you'd be a pretty fun one to interview.
I hope I live up to it. I actually have, I don't know how interested you guys would be, but I actually have a Tacoma TrailHunter in the driveway right now. And if I text you a video, would you be able to play the sound through the podcast?
I think Alex could edit that in.
I could edit it in.
Let me see if I could send it to you. I know Androids and Apples sometimes don't play, but I put a microphone on the snorkel, and it makes some pretty good turbo noises from the factory, which I was pretty happy with.
Okay, yeah.
You could send it to me on Messenger.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, let me try that.
Because I was about to say, because recently everyone's been trying to figure out if what they've been hearing is actually real audio or just people putting turbo noises over the audio clips.
No, I promise you it's real. It's kind of faint inside, but I have a magnetic microphone that I put on the snorkel itself, and It's pretty wild. Let me see if I can find the clip. Oh, it's too large for Messenger to send.
Oh, that is so dumb.
Okay, well, I'll find a way to send it to you. Maybe you could add it in post or something like that.
Google Drive would work.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we can figure that out after the podcast. I don't want to jam it up, but it's pretty cool.
No. Editor Alex coming at you. I got the audio recording from Zack with Shooting Cars. I'm going to put that here, and then we'll get back to the interview. Yeah, they aside from engine and transmission problems people have been having, but they're pretty slick looking trucks, man.
The TrailHunter that got dropped off this morning, it's pretty cool. I'll send you pictures in the Google Drive as well. It has an integrated light bar in the front grille that only comes on if you turn your high beams on, which is pretty cool. It has fog lights that are LED that you can actually change the color of. So there's a button where you could do orange or white LEDs, which is weird, or yellow or white. The Land Cruiser does the same thing.
Yeah.
Ambers, built-in ambers. That is sick.
It's got a bunch of Rigid Industries stuff on it, and it's really cool. I'll send you pictures, but
yeah. So you've been in the new Broncos, you've been in the Jeeps, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Man, how many cars? Because last time when I saw you last, you were hitting episode 600. What are you at now?
I think we're just past 1,600.
Jesus, dude.
So, yeah, I've reviewed over 1,600 cars, which, I mean, spans the oldest car I've done is a 1919, and the newest car is obviously a 2025.
Right.
So it spans all different kinds of cars. It's not strictly off-road, but it's a lot of off-road cars, a lot of classic cars, little roadsters, I mean, what have you. So, but yeah, obviously here to talk about off-roading stuff, which I don't have the most experience with, but I love talking to people that actually do know what they're talking about because it's a lot of fun.
Oh, dude, we can talk about anything. We're an off-road podcast in name only.
Yep.
Yeah, so see, what was the first video I saw from you? It was that SVT Contour that you did up in Big Rapids.
Oh, yeah. You know, I just told a story about that car. I think on another podcast, the Collector Car Feed podcast. That is one of 2 videos I've ever made where I was severely hungover in the video. I think I took 2 cold showers that morning, and I was like, "Oh crap, I gotta film this SVT contour." Because all my friends went to Ferris State University in Big
Right.
Rapids,
Oh, okay.
and so and it's a huge automotive school. So the night
Right.
before, my buddy was like, "Hey, I have this SVT contour. You should review it tomorrow." And I was like, "Cool, gotcha. Let's do it." And then the night progressed, and I forgot about it, and woke up in the morning, and he was like, "Hey, we still gonna film the contour?" And I was like, "Oh no!" So one of only.
This is Editor Alex coming at you. We have a very brief loss of connection right here. It happens again a little later on. I'm not really sure what caused this first one, but we'll get back to it.
Hello?
Oh, he's back.
I could hear you that whole time. I don't know what happened. That was weird.
Weird.
Apologies
But yeah,
for making you have to edit stuff.
Oh, you're good. I don't mind. It was actually really funny because you filmed that video while I lived in Big Rapids, and there's a small part where I'm 95% sure I see my truck.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. You know, that
And
happens every once in a while. Someone will be like, "Hey, you filmed this on my street." And I have to go, "Oh, okay." Like, it's very weird how small the car world becomes, you know?
I think because I had a Civic Si back then, and I can't remember if
Did you email me about it?
I did.
Was it an EP3?
It was.
I remember this email. I remember that. And then I think I reached back out, and then I think that's when you had the Quad 442, right?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Because you know what's funny? I was just thinking about that. I just filmed my first EP3 probably 3 months ago, and I thought about your email, and I was like, man, I never followed up with that guy in Big Rapids, but it turns out I actually did.
You did.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I really miss that little car, man. That was an awesome little car.
You know, it's an unloved generation of the SI. I really, really loved it. The one I drove was pretty beat up, but that's the nice thing about Hondas. Even when they have the snot kicked out of them, they're still so fun. And that just can't be said about American cars.
I don't know. I've been in some beat up Mustangs that are just so fun.
Mustang's fair. I was thinking more like an 02 Cavalier. If it gets the snot kicked out of it, that is a dog.
No, but yeah, the EP3, one of my favorite memories was we got a really big snowstorm, and I had a truck, but for whatever reason I decided to take the EP3 out, and I would put it in first and get up to third gear and then just throw it in reverse on the ice and do a pit maneuver.
That's awesome. I love those things.
It didn't care. I could just beat on it and it was just happy and kept going.
Man, it's just something about Japanese cars. It's same with Toyotas, as I'm sure you guys know. I mean, older Toyotas, they take an ass kicking, and it's nice. It's one of the best parts of the car.
Yep.
Whenever we actually get you in the seat of mine, you'll see it's had the shit kicked out of it, but she just keeps going.
I'm excited for it. I need to come up to Michigan, and we need to film something soon. Hopefully, maybe in the spring when the snow is past and it's not absolutely miserable to be filming. We'll figure something out.
Come up in the snow when it's absolutely miserable. We'll do some snow wheeling.
Oh, like right now.
It's actually. Is it snowy up there?
Oh, yeah,
oh dude, we're having a snowstorm.
Oh wow. Oh geez.
That's why our third co-host isn't on. He realized he was out of diapers at the last minute.
Oh geez.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, we definitely gotta do that because we tried once and my lower ball joint failed.
I remember because you were coming through Illinois, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
Yep. We did like 13 or 1400 mile trip and just happened to be going down pretty close to you. And I was like, hey man, in the middle of this, would you like to do a quick review?
Yeah, and I remember, and then like an hour later, you were like, "Well," and it was just a picture of the car on the ground, and I was like, "Oh, that's not good."
We were only like 30 or 40 miles from you at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, though, I think something came up that day, which so it all ended up working out. I think like someone in my family came up. I had to go to my grandparents for some reason, and check on them, and so it all like ended up working out because like I would have been off filming and not gotten the text message or whatever. So, but yeah, we'll definitely set something up again. Because and I still haven't done a third gen Forerunner. It's the only Forerunner I haven't done.
I keep watching you post like all your Forerunner videos. I'm always like, man, still not a third gen.
Well, and I'm super excited because I got the privilege of being invited to the 5th gen reveal. Is that the 5th gen, the new one?
Yes.
6th gen.
Oh,
is that 6th gen?
Right.
Oh, geez.
6th gen, yep.
5th gen for Tacomas.
Right. So Toyota's actually flying me down to San Diego in January to go drive the new Forerunner before it's released.
Dude, we got to get you up here to do the third gen before then.
Okay. Yeah, we could definitely set. I haven't planned out my January yet, but I know that trip is January 21st. So we could get some seat time before that. It'd be cool to release the Tacoma TrailHunter, the 3rd gen, and the 6th gen all like together. I think that'd be kind of cool.
And you could honestly do 2 third gens because I've got that almost OEM one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would love to do that and then just probably hold on to the Haggard one for a couple of weeks or months and then put that out separately as this sort of Grinch style video.
Oh, my daily being called Haggard.
Well, you sent me one that was real chopped up.
Oh, the crawler?
Oh, yeah, that one's all torn apart. No, I'm talking about my
about that one.
Yeah, I've got a silver one and a black one. I think I sent you a picture recently.
I think so.
So I've got those two for you to do a review on. But the blue one, the crawler, we just tore that one apart.
That's what I was thinking of. I thought that was your daily, and I was like, is that not Haggard?
No. There you go. I just sent you a picture of my daily on text message.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha.
But yeah, that blue one, man, that thing was so ratchet. Like, don't get me wrong, the dude built it well. It's got long travel. Everything's been beefed up, lockers front and rear, twin stick. I mean, it had all the stuff. Mm-hmm. But he just didn't care about it.
Yeah. Man, the amount of time, if I had $1 for every car I reviewed where it was a nice car, but the owner just didn't care, man, I wouldn't have to make YouTube videos anymore. I swear.
Like the one that sticks out to me is the 350Z that you reviewed.
Oh God, which one?
Oh, you've done more than one?
Oh yeah. Well, I did a 07 convertible 07 HR, and I did a 04 Nissan 350. Jeez, that's coming up on 8 years ago.
Maybe that's the one I'm thinking of.
I also did a Nismo, but the Nismo had like 30,000 miles on it, so.
I think I'm thinking of the 04.
Yeah, that was a high school friend. It was, I think he had a Pokemon shift knob, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was a quintessential high school car. It was plastic dipped. It had obnoxious seats, obnoxious shifter. Yeah, I mean, but there have been cars that have been way worse than that. I reviewed a car that a guy was actively living in. Like, that was his only domicile, was one of the cars.
What was it?
I don't want to out the guy with the video, but it was an older car. Like it was a 1970s to 80s car. And it was
Got
actually up in Detroit, and it just had a bunch of laundry in it. And I was like, all right, this is weird. And he met me at a park. And then, which was fine. Like, I had people meet me in public all the time. Like, I get it. Like, meeting a guy off the internet, inviting him to your house, right off the rip is kind of weird. So it's pretty common to meet people in public. So I was like, okay, sure, whatever. And then he ended up emailing me a couple months later, and he was like, hey, man, like, thanks for making the video because that was my living situation. And I was like, oh, geez, okay. So he was like, I have an apartment now, and he has a job now and all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I have reviewed the gamut of cars.
What's always been unique about your channel to me is, regular car review, maybe not so much him, but like that dude in blue. They're always these almost, I don't want to say perfect examples, but very exceptional examples of whatever he's reviewing. Right. Whereas with you don't care. You're reviewing anything you can get your hands on, and we see some really cool stuff because of it.
Yeah, I don't limit myself to any shape or condition. Obviously, there have been a handful of cars that I've turned down for safety concerns. I literally drove an E30 BMW where the transmission was held in with self-tappers. It was non-registered. It wasn't insured. And the springs had been removed and replaced with hockey pucks.
Oh my God.
It was bad. And funny enough, I actually ended up doing that review, but ever since then, I'm like, all right, I got to have some type of base level here. So like, I always tell people like, it has to be registered and insured. It has to be like a legal vehicle unless we're on private property, which I've done some videos on private property. But yeah, I mean, my thinking is that I'll review the crappy version now, and the good version will come later. Because 9 times out of 10, I will post a video of a car that's in terrible condition. Exhibit A, I did a Chrysler LeBaron convertible. And this car, I mean, the seats were supposed to be tan. They were black.
I remember this one.
It was red. The top didn't work. The windows didn't work. It was awful. I released that video that night. This guy who ended up living a town over from me emailed me, and he said, I can't believe you would review that trash, that garbage. That was a sin to LeBarons. I have this like 40,000 mile teal LeBaron. Like, come drive this one. So then I did a review of this like really low mileage, like factory clean LeBaron out of the crappy LeBaron video. So that usually ends up happening. So I'm not too worried about the condition. And there's a lot of times that's part of the story too. I drove a 1964 Cadillac ambulance that literally had sat in a field since the 90s. They put some ether in the intake, got it to fire over, and then called me up. And the next day I drove it. Like it had been sitting in a field for 20 years the day before I drove it. And that was cool. There was active moss growing on the rear tailgate. But that's part of that car's story,
Yeah.
Right.
So, stuff like that.
Yeah, like I said, that's what really to me sets your channel apart. That and your little video documentary things. Those are pretty spectacular.
Thank you. I love doing them. It's really fun for me because I just have that kind of personality where like if I learn about something, I just dive into it one night. And a lot of those scripts I end up writing in one night, but it's just like 6 hours of me just like researching and reading books and all this stuff. But they're a lot of work to put together.
I believe it.
But they're a lot of fun. They're really rewarding as well.
I will say your Jeep Duck and Jeep Wave episode, we had Jeep Ducks way before that situation in Canada.
Really?
So I had my TJ in 2016 and 2017.
Okay.
And we played a game called Duck Duck Jeep, where you'd see a
Okay.
Jeep. It was mostly on the r/Jeep page. You'd see a Jeep, you'd put the duck on there, and they were it. There were maybe 500 ducks, and we passed them around the community.
Gotcha. Huh.
But
yeah.
That history is just so twisted for some reason. Maybe I came from a different timeline.
Maybe because I couldn't find any reference to. I searched for like, it always makes me laugh because I searched these old forum posts, and it's just like all like image not found, photo bucket images that are not found, and it's just like searching, and I couldn't find a reference older than 2020. That's so.
I was
Maybe
looking
you
too,
are
but
from a different
I couldn't
timeline.
find it.
That's so funny.
Yeah, if I go to r/Jeep, maybe I can find something.
Yeah, and please send it my way. The interesting thing about that actually happened since I posted that video. It happened, oh God, maybe 2 weeks ago. The boyfriend of the girl who started the Jeep thing up in Canada actually DM'd me. And he was like, thank you so much for doing the video and speaking light, because the girl actually passed away this summer,
Right.
who had started it. And so he was like, oh, thank you for the kind words. Like, it would have meant a lot to her. And thank you for the video. So it was a really cool, again, small world moment where I was like, oh, wow. Like, it actually reached like the people that, quote unquote started it, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really sad that she passed away, especially since she reinvigorated something that, I was pretty fond of way back when.
Yeah, 100%. And we could talk off air, but I have the guy's contact info. If you guys would like to try to get him on the podcast to talk about what she was like and sort of more info in that story, I can definitely pass that along.
That could actually be a really cool episode. I know we've got a couple of Jeep listeners that would appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. After this, just remind me and I'll see if I can grab his contact info.
Make sure you ask him first. I don't want to just
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. I wouldn't have you just cold call him or whatever it is, because people do that to me all the time, where they're like, "Hey, this guy has cool cars. You should ask him to review it." And I'm like, "Well, like who? Like, does he know who I am?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I'm just cold calling this 80-year-old guy that has a secret car collection. Very, very
right.
Cool. Okay.
So on a little different note, I got to know, how did you get started working with dealerships?
So it was all kind of a natural evolution, right? So I started filming cars. Well, first of all, I started building cars. I had old RX-7s, or I had an old RX-7 at the time. It was only one at that point.
You still have one, right?
I don't anymore. I sold it 2022.
What?
Yeah, I sold it at the end of 2022, and I miss it dearly, but my life right now just isn't open to a project car.
That's like the icon of your channel.
I know, and spoiler alert, the intro, this is a world exclusive. The intro of my reviews for 2025 actually is the sound of my RX-7. Because that's what I started my channel with. But it was costing me $500, $600, $700 a video just to make one video, because it was, to do the cooling system. Well, the radiator was $350 and all the coolant was $100 and the new piping was $200, and finding all these vintage parts, and it was so hard to make a single video. And I was a high schooler, so I was like, I have zero budget. So I thought, how can I start making more? Because I really, truly love the process of making the videos. I love the editing. I like adjusting the thumbnail till it's, right. I love, meeting people and driving cool cars and all that stuff. So I was like, how can I keep making videos? Well, I'll do car reviews. Big influences like Doug DeMiro, that dude in blue.
Yep.
Regular car reviews, of which I'm actually now friends with that dude in blue and regular car reviews. They're super nice. And it's
I was
really,
gonna
really cool
say,
to like, yeah.
I thought I saw you had met that dude in blue. I cannot think of what his name is.
David. I
Yes, thank
actually
you.
have a video with him coming out in a couple of days, I think. He took me in a GR Corolla for a lap around Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Oh yeah, that's
So we
sick.
have a fun little video. Let's see when that's coming out. I don't know when you'll post this, but that'll be December 14th. I have a video with that dude in blue coming out. But basically,
All right.
I asked my parents, I asked my grandparents, I was like, hey, can I borrow your car for a little bit to make a video? And I did that for a while, but then I was like, well, if I want to take this seriously, if I want it to be my full-time job, I have to treat it like a full-time job. So I need
Right.
more cars. So at the time I think it was like maybe 10,000 subscribers. So I was still, well, I still am a small fish in a big pond or whatever. But I was like, manufacturers aren't going to send me anything. I don't have the following for that. So what can I do? I can go to dealerships and basically offer up free advertising if I can just borrow the car for an hour. And I went to 14 dealerships in one day, which luckily in the town that I grew up in, they were all on one street. So it was, excuse me, it was one winter day. It was in December of 2018. I just drove down the street and I stopped at every single dealership and I made up I printed out all these resumes and put them in giant folders and those like little clasp folders that I got at the dollar store. And I went to every single dealership and I gave them a resume and said, hey, I would need a car for an hour. You would get free advertising. I would get a video. It's completely free to you. I get content from my channel. And that's it. And seriously, like out of a movie, the first 13 dealerships said no, which was fair. I mean, I was a kid. I was
Right.
I didn't call ahead. I would just walk into every dealership and go, hey, can I talk to your manager? And they were like, okay. So kind of the Karen approach. But the last dealership I went to was the Toyota dealership. And they're like, oh yeah, 100%. It's free to us. And I was like, yeah, it's free. So they're like, cool. And I think I filmed a video like the next day there. And I lucked out because that dealership actually owned a Chevy dealership and a Lexus dealership in the same town. So it's kind of a threefold. Yeah. So I started off with that. And then once I had filmed probably for like 2 or 3 months at that dealership, I started emailing other dealerships and saying, hey, I did this for Toyota of Naperville. I could do this for you too. And a lot of dealerships said no again, but a few more said yes. And then a few more said yes. And there was a point where I was working with about 20 area dealerships in any given week, which was huge for sourcing cars.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and to me, it's really fun watching your newer content. Just, I've been a subscriber for 7, 8 years now. Like, it's been a while.
Years and years and years, yeah.
And I don't watch every video, but I watch probably 1 or 2 a week. And I can drastically see a difference in quality from when you started or when I started following you to now. I mean, they're loads better, dude. And I really think that having those dealerships to just have new cars all the time like that, it's really, really helped your style grow.
Oh, 100%. And that's the big thing too. Like I still hope that one day I will be good at this. Like that's still the idea in my head, is that one day I'll actually be okay at reviewing cars, and that this is all still just a building process, because it is. And I hope in 3 years I'm going to look back on the videos I made now and say, wow, those were terrible, but now I'm better. Because I watch a video from 4 or 5 years ago and it's I can't watch it. It's unpalatable.
I watched.
But, yeah.
See, what video did I watch from yours yesterday? The 98 Ram. That's what, 9 years old?
Oh, gee. That was
8 or 9 years?
okay. So that was my technically second review, but the first one I ever filmed was my white 98 Ram. That was the car that
Yep.
I had at the time. I think it I'm trying to think now. Maybe I filmed that first and released it second, or I filmed it second and released it first. I can't remember now. But yeah, that was one of the earliest ones. That is awful. That video is so bad. I had no microphone, so I recorded with a GoPro, and then I had a flip video camera in my lap. And if you if you
God.
watch the video, which I cannot recommend you watch the video, please do not. But if you, for some reason, if you're a masochist and love self-hatred and want to watch the video, the sound and the video lose sync with one another periodically throughout the video. So there's times where my mouth is moving and there's no voice coming out, and vice versa. And also, I think I put like a Deadmau5 song in the background.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like the dumb. Like, I could not imagine a dumber thing to do today than that. But I always tell people when they want to start YouTube, just make a video. Your first video is going to suck. Your second video is going to suck. But your third video might be a little bit better than those first two. And your fourth video is hopefully better than the first three, and so on. So I appreciate you saying that, because literally all of this is, I'm just trying to make a better video than the one I just posted. That's my whole goal.
I can definitely say that works with podcasts too, because if you listen to our first two episodes, was it a little rough?
Yes, it was.
And
Now,
it is for everyone, but you need those first episodes to start off. You need a jumping off point, and then you can always improve from there. But there's so many people that are scared of that first episode that they'll never get a second episode. You know what I mean?
you definitely should. Maybe I'll send you a little soundbite from our unreleased episode, the very first one we recorded. The sound quality was so bad.
I'm sure. But that's how you learn. And, you could tweak it from here and there, in the same respect of, I've always thought, I should buy this $3,000 camera that can shoot, 240 frames a second. But not once have I ever gotten a comment of like, the camera quality's not good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can honestly say that especially probably the last 2 years, your video quality is spectacular.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But in the same vein, for years people would say, this audio quality is bad. So I've stepped up. I've invested the money in better microphones. I used to mount the microphone on the windshield, which in hindsight is a very dumb thing to do, because every single vibration is recorded through the so I moved to lapel mics, and that was better, but they were wired, and every 3 months a wire would tear and I'd have to buy another $60 microphone. And then early last year, I moved to a wireless rechargeable microphone, and that's been the latest iteration. Maybe in 2 years, I'll have a microphone that's inside my mouth for the clearest quality possible, or something like that.
They rip out your tooth and then give you a microphone in.
Yeah, I just won't have eyes. I'll have 2 4K cameras, and it'll be all POV, and that's just
Hell
the life
yeah.
I'll live.
So your current mic's what? A Rode mic?
My current mic is a DJI Mic 2, I believe.
Okay.
It's wireless. It's $250 for 2 of them, and they have like an AirPod style case where their case also charges them.
Yep.
I was very hesitant to go wireless for many, many years because I was always worried about interference. But honestly, I've been using them for the last year and a half, and I've never had a single instance of interference. It's just been me forgetting to hit record, or like personal error, which happens more than I would like to admit.
Those have the little magnet lapel thing, right?
Yes, so that's what I used to record that Tacoma video, was the magnetic mic, which has been super helpful for like exhaust and intake and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can say that probably in the last year, your sound quality is, like I said, man, your videos just keep getting better.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and that's the goal. Although I will say, a little inside baseball, it hasn't come out yet, But December 13th, I have a 1986 Dodge Ram Charger coming out.
Oh, hell yeah.
I forgot to hit record on the microphone, and so that's just GoPro audio. But that's just between you and me.
We'll see how many people notice.
Yeah, don't say anything in the comments. I want to see if anyone notices. The audio, it's passable. It's fine. But if you watch it back to back with any other video, you will notice that it sounds like
Right.
inside a fish tank.
So another gear shift here so we can keep it going.
Yeah.
You have, I can think of probably 10 or 11 off-road vehicles I've seen you review in the last couple of years. Which one was your favorite?
Oh, geez. I mean, what immediately jumps out at me is the 392 Wrangler. That was a great one. That vehicle, it's just the complete package. It had the power sky roof or whatever they call it, the freedom roof or whatever. And I mean, it had the exhaust button, and every time I got in the car, just hit the exhaust button, and it gurgled and popped. It was so good. I had the Bronco Raptor. I didn't love it, especially for the price tag.
That seems to be pretty tracking with what I've been hearing.
Yep.
Well, here's the thing. Why couldn't Ford just put the 5-liter Coyote into it?
Right.
They have it on hand. They put it into every F-150 that isn't a Super Duty. The 5-liter Coyote is good enough for the application, and it would have sounded right and probably not lost that much power compared to the 3-liter twin turbo. But for $96,000, I mean, the suspension, I'll give it. The suspension is worth every penny, because I did not jump it, but let's say a friend of mine did, and it was very, very smooth on the landing. Ford Motor Company, I did not jump your Bronco Raptor.
A friend of yours did.
Yeah, someone I know personally, who's devilishly handsome. The other, my favorite car that I've had this year, above all, has been the Ford F-150 Raptor R. That truck is just, and I know it's not like off-road, but that is, it's my car of the year for this year.
Dude, we live in Michigan, and people use those on the dunes, so that's off-road to us.
Yep.
That is, I mean, even though it was like, I think it was 100 and something thousand, 110, 120 maybe. Just the sound of it was just, I mean, it made you delirious. It was amazing. 720 horsepower in a pickup truck is just so good.
I did that once in a Ram.
Which Ram?
I had a 05 Ram 1500, two-wheel drive, slammed it, put a turbo on it, made like 765 or something like that.
Was it the 5.7? What motor?
5.7 Hemi.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean,
I have
more...
a buddy who has the 3.6 V6 that he has a 100 shot of nitrous on, which is interesting.
That is interesting. Is it fast?
It's quick. It beats V8, like stock V8 trucks. So he's planning on V8 swapping it and whatnot. But it's a short cab, or it's a single cab short bed manual as well. So it's a fun little ripper. Sick. It's a little sport. Yeah. I'm trying to think of other off-road vehicles. You know what? I gotta say it, and I'm gonna get hate for this. The last off-road experience, like truly off-road experience I had, was in a Nissan Rogue Rock Creek. So this is, all they do is they give it a different front bumper, which doesn't really, it increases the approach angle by like 2 inches. They don't touch the suspension. They give it knobby tires, and then they give it an off-road mode and like special seats or whatever. For a Nissan event, Nissan paid for us to, they sent the car to my house, and then I drove it to Indiana, and we went to this off-road park. It's called Sodbusters Off-Road in Indiana. And they do,
I've
like,
never even heard of that.
Like that. They do like 3 mud bog events a year. I don't know how corporate Nissan found this hole in the wall, but literally the whole small town turned up because we had 7 of these mom SUVs that we wanted to take on their off-road course, and the dang things worked so well. It was stupid.
Yeah,
I have
South Bend
it's
Sodbusters.
Yes, because we went to, as the Nissan event, we went to a Notre Dame game the night before. They paid for our hotel. They got us tickets to the Notre Dame game, and then in the morning we loaded up and did this. It's all in my review, all the footage of it.
I'll have to
but
go find that.
There was this really steep incline, and I looked at the Nissan representative, and I was like, I don't think this is not a good idea. Like, this thing is not going to make it up that. And lo and behold, with enough throttle and enough gut, you can get up it. I mean, the whole, like the off-road team was like, how the heck did none of these get stuck? It was absolutely wild. So although I don't think I would buy one of those because I don't like the engine and I don't like the transmission, I got to give credit where credit's due. That thing actually ripped.
I actually have a review for you that might be kind of fun. We'll have to talk about this another time, but we have a guy in our group. He drives a GMC Terrain.
Yep.
Okay.
What is it? A 2022, I think it is.
That sounds about right. Somewhat new, but
And
not.
He's got 3 inches of custom suspension on it.
Okay.
And he thinks it's a good off-road truck. I mean, to be fair, I've never watched him wheel it, so I can't say it's not, but it is just a Terrain. But it's a very different Terrain from what you'd usually see. So that one would probably be a fun one for you to review.
I would love to do that. My first ever off-roading experience, and there's a video of this on my channel. If you type in Pontiac Sunfire, a guy lifted a Pontiac Sunfire and put it on mud terrains.
I saw the green one.
No, it was red. I think it was a Sunfire. Let me see. Lifted 2003 Pontiac Sunfire sedan review. I posted this 2019. This thing, I mean, with enough throttle, it got around. It did fine. It was still front wheel drive.
Oh yeah, look at that. 2.2. It's got the 2.2 and everything.
Yeah.
And it's an automatic.
And all he would do is he would lock it in first gear and his foot would never leave the floorboard. And it was just just everywhere it went. And this thing took a beating. But we were following, it was a whole Subaru club. We were keeping up with like lifted Foresters and Crosstreks and Legacies and Outbacks and things like that. And then here we came in this chopped up Pontiac Sunfire on God knows what kind of wheels. And it did it. It actually did it.
That thing looks sick. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, that is some of my best off-roading experiences have been in the most ill-equipped vehicles probably ever. I mean, I 3-wheeled my own Mazda 3, and I have a 6-foot gash on the bottom of the car going all the way down, and it starts 2 inches behind the oil pan because I 3-wheeled it, and then I high-centered it on a rock.
How's that old girl doing? You had because that's the one you had when you came up here, right?
Yeah, the Mazda 3, you know, I'm very, very fortunate. Last year, I started getting press cars, which is the manufacturer will actually send me a car to drive for a week, which is great. It's free gas. It's free tolls. I get a brand new car every week. My Mazda doesn't have heated seats, but I haven't had a vehicle without heated seats in the last like 2 years. So it works out pretty well. I have 108,000 miles on it. I still have it. It's parked in the garage, and I actually just got a battery tender in the mail for it because if I don't have to drive it through the salt, I'm not going to drive it through the salt. But I love that thing. My girlfriend and I took it down to Big Bend, Texas or
Mhm.
Big Bend National Park down in Texas, and there was this trail. There was like this old spa from the 1930s. That was like this like hot springs thing, but to get down there was a 4x4 trail. And me being me was like, oh, my Mazda 3 is all-wheel drive. That's four-wheel drive. So we were like, okay, let's do it. And we're going down this trail, and it's it's a little washboardy, and I don't know what the term is when like the wheels are doing the opposite thing. So like the left track would go down and the right track would go up, and then vice versa. I don't know if there's like a word for that.
We call it cambering, but I don't know. That's the same thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Question.
So like we start doing that, and I'm like, oh, this is getting kind of rough. We're hearing some pinging and ponging happening underneath the car. And then it starts to get really loud, and I stop the car, and I'm like, oh, like I think we might have a flat tire, because like the front left side is dipping like really, really bad. And as I'm thinking it, the whole car leans back onto the rear right tire, and now the front tire is hanging in the air. So we were three-wheeling it. And so I just throttled it out. I have a picture of it down at the basin, and it was all fine. We went back up, same thing, with some dents and dings, but it's fine. And as we were leaving, there was this Jeep that was pulling onto the trail, and everyone in the Jeep was just staring at us. And I swear, the driver did the actual movie thing where he lowered his glasses and looked at me. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, man. And we just kept, and you know what? I drove that thing 2,000 miles back home, not a single issue, and haven't had an issue at all. God bless that little thing.
A pretty big joke in our community is, I spent $40,000 building out my rig just to get to the spot I was aiming for to find a stock Honda Civic.
Exactly. But the off-road stuff is a lot of fun, and I'm trying to think of other off-road specific vehicles that I've had. I like the regular Bronco. I think the regular Bronco is a good bang for buck if you buy them in like the $40,000 range and then fit them yourself. Because you could buy a stock, a base or near base Bronco for, I think they start at 43 or 44, and you could put 20 grand worth of mods into it, and you would still be 30 grand shy of the Bronco Raptor. Like, that's insane.
Right.
So
I mean,
things like that.
We were looking for one for my sister like a year ago. I think we were looking at like 22, so a little bit older.
Sure.
And we were seeing them in like the $25,000 to $30,000 mark if they had a manual. And it's like, oh yeah, man.
I've never driven the 7-speed manual. I've always wanted to.
Yeah, and for some reason the manual is so much cheaper than the automatic.
Huh. That is actually really surprising.
Like in the after, in the resale market, for whatever reason, if it's got a manual, it's significantly cheaper.
Huh. I would not have guessed that, truly.
I think it has something to do with what I would call the JK effect, where the off-road vehicles like the Bronco or the Jeep JK or the JL even, they're not really marketed towards enthusiasts anymore. They're more marketed towards, Sandy taking her kids to soccer.
Yeah, 100%, unfortunately.
So, with that being how it is, well, Sandy's not going to learn how to drive a manual. She just wants to get in her car and go. Right. So it drives the cost of the automatics up.
Yeah, I just drove a 2024 Wrangler Sport, and it had I think it had the hardtop option, optional wheels. I want to say that's it. I mean, it's pretty as basic as a Wrangler could get.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this isn't bad, brand new for like 38, 39, whatever. $47,000.
Jesus.
I mean, how can it's so far out of everyone's price range that it's just, and then the car companies are going to be curious as to why they're not selling units. Stellantis in general, which is a whole cup of tea situation.
Especially with Stellantis trying to figure out why they're having the lowest sales they've ever had by like 60% or something like that.
Yeah, it's bad. And you know what? I work pretty closely with the Stellantis PR team, and they are truly wonderful people. I mean, they are awesome, awesome people. It's just a bad situation, and it's a mix
Yeah.
of the quality of the cars are bad. Well, if they try to make the quality bad, then they got to spend more money, and they don't have more
Right.
money to spend. I mean, they're really in a corner, and so we'll see what happens. Of all the brands, I worry about Jeep the least. There was talks of possibly trying to Toyota or Honda possibly buying the Jeep name and making, and I mean, it's all speculation online, but man, if Toyota bought Jeep and made actual reliable Wranglers, I mean, that'd be awesome.
I almost would rather see Ford buy Jeep, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just, from a history standpoint, Ford and Willys made the Jeeps together for World War II. There were a couple other little ones in there. I mean, Bantam made a handful, but long gone companies now. But it would be really cool to see Ford circle back and take ownership of that line.
Yeah, no, 100%. The military Jeep that I reviewed actually had Ford stampings on it, which was really, really cool. I think it was just for the radiator cap and something else. It was a Willys or Willis built Jeep, but it had Ford Jeep parts on it, which was really special. I don't think Ford would do that just because their Bronco sells so well that they would have basically they would create a competitor to it. Toyota doesn't really have a Jeep competitor. I mean, say 4Runner all you want, but they really serve two different markets.
Very much so. But no, I 100% do never could see Ford buying them, but I would love to see Ford buy them.
Oh yeah, no, me 100%. I would love to see GM bring Pontiac and Saturn back. As EVs even. Like I think Saturn is the Oldsmobile would be great. I think Saturn would be the perfect little economy EV restart. They did it with the GMC Hummer, which is quite the handful to drive, but they did it. I have a very love-hate relationship with the EV Hummer. It's a really cool piece of technology. I mean, as a gimmicky, fun thing, it was really, really fun to have one and go and play with all the buttons. But driving it, you're driving a nearly 10,000-pound truck that can do 0 to 60 in about 4 seconds. So it'll take one rich dad's kid, some 16-year-old, to try to impress his friends in a parking lot. And now it's a 10,000-pound battering ram into some poor family's house or a supermarket or what have you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I mean, kind of on that front, have you driven the Cybertruck yet?
I have. Again, love-hate relationship with that. I applaud them for creating a car that doesn't look like anything else. The number one comment that I get on every new car video is every car looks the same. And then finally, a company made a car that doesn't look the same, and people still hate it. Now, it is ugly, but you asked for something different, and it's different.
I was going to say, to be fair.
Yeah, no, it is ugly, but different is usually viewed as ugly. That's why, no other car looks like it, but you gotta applaud different. It's fine to drive. It has a really weird steering mechanism that isn't talked about as much because it is steer-by-wire, which isn't a new thing in the car industry, but the steering is non-linear. So you turn the wheel a little bit and the wheels turn a little bit, but then you turn it a little bit more and the wheels go to full lock. So there's no it's not like, oh, every inch is 5 degrees. It's like, well, the first 3 inches are 5 degrees and the next 3 inches are 30 degrees. And so driving it is just strange and it's weird to get used to.
What shape was the steering wheel on the one you drove?
Was it a yoke? I can't even remember. I have to look up my own video. I will say the other part of the love part of the Cybertruck is that this one single video paid my rent for probably about 3 months this summer. So, respect where respect is due. And there's a lot of angry comments, but the angry comments were keeping the lights on here. I had it was like an oval shaped wheel. It wasn't the full yoke.
Yeah.
It was
that's what
weird. I drove a Model X, a Tesla Model X with the yoke, and the yoke is a joke. Bar none.
Yeah,
it is a horrible steering mechanism.
I was watching a video recently. I don't remember who did it, but they were talking about how bad the yoke was. And the main complaint was the non-linear steering. Because, in an F1 car, which is what the yoke's based off of, it makes sense because they're not turning that wheel all the way. So the yoke doesn't get in the way, and it's got linear steering, but it's more steering than what a normal car would have.
Right.
But with the Tesla yoke, the wheel still turns almost all the way, but it's got non-linear steering.
It goes all the way around. You have to hand over hand the yoke, and your left hand instinctively grabs the top of the steering wheel, but there's no top of the steering wheel to grab, so you just kind of punch the air.
That's just
it's
terrible.
Yeah.
Yokes do not belong on a normal road drive. They don't.
No. Lexus did it very, very short with their EV, the RZ450. They offered a yoke, and I think they canceled it within the first month or so of production and went back to a wheel. It's just it's not smart. And people want these cars to be space agey without doing the space agey back note or back work, I guess,
Right.
So
yeah,
the Cybertruck, it's weird. And reviewing any Tesla product is very, very hard to do because there's almost no way to do it without bias or without considering everything that Tesla and Elon Musk is. Like you can't just buy a Tesla because you're like, oh, I want an electric car. It's like, oh, you're buying it and you want an electric car and you support this and you support that and you don't support this and don't support that and, all of this stuff. So it's tough, but I was able to get in the seat of one and it was not great.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm actually a big Musk fan, but I'm not a Tesla fan.
Interesting. Huh. You often find it the other way around.
Not here. Here it's the other way around.
Gotcha. Okay.
You got to remember we're from the middle of nowhere, man.
It's interesting because with him being a part of government and there's so many EV rebates and stuff, but those might go away, which will hurt his business, which will be interesting.
Right.
The whole political situation with EVs is going to be really interesting over the next 4 years. I think a lot of those EV things are going to get walked back, and I think we're going to see a slowing in production for sure.
So, right now with the way the EVs aren't selling, and when up here, they're basically useless in the winter.
Yeah.
So watching that stuff kind of get rolled back a little, I'm not against it because I'm not going to say there's no future for EVs. They make sense for, say, Chicago. You're near Chicago. If I lived in Chicago, I would have an EV, period.
Sure.
But up here, not even saying it has to be gas or diesel. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to hydrogen. If we could find a way to power a car off turkey shit, that would be awesome. Hi, this is Editor Alex coming at you from the future. We had a brief power outage right here, but we got her under control and got right back to the pod. Oh, I hear him.
Did you see that happen?
No.
The whole power of my house just flashed and everything just
Oh
shut off.
shit!
That was
That's
so
why
weird.
it got dark for a second.
Yeah, I mean, my computer just shut down. Everything just went dark for a second. So obviously my internet went out, so I'm on data now. But wow. Okay, Exhibit A. If that happens overnight and you don't know it, and you're trying to charge your car, you're not going to have miles in the morning.
Nope.
You see, this is why
really
we need to fund the technology to power cars off turkey poop.
I feel like that argument might be a little bit biased, but I'll stand behind it.
Well, I mean, if we could figure out how to power them reliably off nitrogen, we can pull nitrogen out of turkey poop, out of any poop, really.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
So,
But, yeah,
I mean, yeah.
The thing is, my mom works 1.8 miles from their house. She should definitely have an EV. 100%.
Yeah, makes sense.
Even in winter, if she has a third of the range, which is going to be like still 75 miles. I mean, I don't think she's ever driven more than 30 miles in her whole entire life in one day.
And maybe,
so stuff like that makes sense.
And yet, not even for the environmental standpoint, because that's a whole nother bag of worms. But just for the price of ownership, it makes sense for her to have an EV.
Yeah, and she's an older lady. She wouldn't have to go to the gas station anymore, especially at night, especially when the sun's down. I know that's a big stressor for a lot of people. She would always be at home, plugged in. She wouldn't have to, deal with anything. And a lot of people, non-gearheads are very adverse to the smell of gas, how dirty it is, the whole process of it. So it makes sense for people, but it shouldn't be required is the biggest thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh,
yeah, I'm not anti-EV. I'm anti-forced EV.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I have an EV at the house for a week, I just know that my week is going to be a little bit harder because of the amount of miles I drive a week. I have to consider, and I don't have a charger at my house, so I'm like, okay, well, if I film on Monday and Tuesday night has to be spent at Walmart charging. And then if I drive far on Wednesday, I probably got to spend Wednesday night charging. And it takes about an hour or two to do it each time. So I just have to plan that into my life. Does it absolutely stop my life? No, but it's something you have to consider.
I hadn't even fully thought about that. Like, I couldn't have an EV here because I don't have a garage, so I would have to charge it somewhere else, which would mean, in my situation, I'd have to drive. Oh, we don't even have them in Fremont.
Neweggo.
Well, Neweggo's, yeah, but they got the slow chargers.
Yeah,
I'd have to go to Grand Rapids.
And that's the other thing. Now you're hoping that when you get there, that the charger's in full working order. I had a Hyundai Ioniq 6 last year, which is like their electric sedan. There's the Ioniq 5 SUV, and then there's the Ioniq 6, which is the sedan. And I had like 30 miles of range left, and I had like 2 hours before I was supposed to film. So I was like, all right, cool. I'll I found a charger along the way. I'll get it down to like 20%, and then I'll charge, be good by the time it's time to film, whatever other car I'm filming, whatever. And I get to the charger. 2 of the bays were taken. The third charger not working. So I ended up waiting for 45 minutes for one of the Chevy Bolts to leave. So then I could finally charge. And now I didn't have enough time for a full charge. So I got up to like 55 or 60%, went and filmed the video, then drove back to the charger to top off the rest of the charge. So it was like, well, this 2-hour endeavor now just became 5.5 hours.
Right.
So,
and aside from the fact that I couldn't just throw a charger outside, I do live in Michigan, and like right now it's really cold out. That car would not be happy charging at all outside.
No.
Oh, no. And that's another barrier to entry too, is that it's still you have to basically own a home in order to have an EV, and at that point own a home with a garage.
Yeah.
and
Right.
own a home with a garage that will take 240, and own a home with a garage, that is set up for 240 that isn't gonna, break your system or whatever. So there's a lot of stipulations that kind of, keep it from being in every man's vehicle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I really think the technology is cool. I don't see in the next 20, maybe even 30 years it being viable for everybody.
No.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was down in Oklahoma City, or maybe Tulsa. I can't remember now. On the trip, actually, funny enough, that I went off-roading in my Mazda 3. On the way down, I reviewed a Mitsubishi iMeave, which was one of the first electric cars you could buy. They look like eggs. Do you guys remember that?
I do.
Sounds familiar.
The guy lived in an apartment complex, and he had an extension cord running off of his balcony and down into the parking lot. There was just this orange cord dangling, which also, by the way, if I have any PSA to give you, do not charge an EV or any modern EV off of an extension cord. Do not do that. It will fry your outlets, and all the chargers say don't do it. I didn't read that, and I came home to an outlet on fire. So don't charge with an extension cord.
Man, that really wouldn't work for me.
Nope.
Yeah, I had a Volvo S60, which is their plug-in hybrid, to be fair. It wasn't a full electric, but as a plug-in hybrid, you get like
right.
30 miles of electric driving if you charge it up. This car was wonky too. It threw a check engine light. It would start and stop randomly. So like I would just look out my window and the lights were on and it was running, even though I had the key with me upstairs.
That sounds safe.
Yeah, it was bad. But I plugged it into the wall and I came out the next day and it was still at 0%. I was like, what the heck, man? I was charging this all night, and I go and look at the outlet. The outlet is black and charred. And I was like, oh, all right. So I'm calling an electrician. And that was a $100 or so mistake. But I ended up learning, do not charge them off of extension cords. It's no good.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
But yeah,
well,
so
we are over an hour now. We could stop if you need to stop, or we could keep going. I don't care either way.
I can do probably 10 more minutes, and then I'm going to go figure out what that power surge was. I don't know. This house was built in the 40s, so it's got some wonkiness to it.
Oh.
But how do you guys feel about the 4xe Wranglers, speaking of electric cars and off-roaders?
I don't think I've seen one out on the trails yet.
I haven't seen one out on
for
the
several
trail.
years.
But my thing with the 4xe is that the hybrid one, or are those full electric? Those are full electric, right?
No, the 4xe is the plug-in hybrid. So it's the 2-liter turbo, hybrid, and then you get like 25 miles of all-electric driving.
Because I have thoughts on full electric off-road, but when it comes to plug-in hybrid, that instant torque would be nice.
It's not that instant.
No,
it's not.
Well, when it's in EV mode, it doesn't, like, I don't think it can go above. There's a certain speed where it tops out at. It's not very. It's basically a gas saver mechanism. It's not very torquey. Although I will say, in the industry, it has one of the best, if not the best, crossover from gas to electric. It's nearly seamless. Even the Prius. I mean, the Prius bucks like a Bronco when it switches from gas to electric. The 4xe doesn't, but I was curious if you guys have seen them out on trails, but apparently not. And they've been out
I
for,
have not.
I think, well, my computer is off now. I think I reviewed one as old as 2021, I want to say.
Sounds about right.
I will say that most of what we see, though, are Toyotas, because we kind of run in a group that's kind of heavy on the Toyotas.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so how about the new Land Cruiser?
Yeah, nope, never seen one.
I've not seen one of those yet.
Well, you're not touching them for under $60K.
They look
I was
sick.
they are very sick. I was fortunate enough to actually have two of them due to a scheduling error, actually. Toyota sent me the top trim level, which is just called Land Cruiser, with the rectangle headlights. So I drove that around for a couple days. Had a refrigerator in it, had the nice sound system, big screen, all that stuff. And then I get a call on Friday morning saying, "Hey, we gave you the wrong Land Cruiser. We have to come pick it up, and we're giving you a base model." So in the 40 minutes that they said that they would be there, I went and filmed a review. I filmed all the exterior and interior shots of it, and then they picked it up, and all the audio you hear, I'm actually driving the base model, but you never see it because it's just the exterior video of the other one. But then I had the base model for a little bit. I like them. It's going to be very interesting to see how the 2.4 turbo does, just like longevity sake. But they're great to drive, and they have all the off-road goodies you could want. So,
And I'm interested to see what Toyota's play is here, because from what I've been seeing with the new 4Runner, it's going to be priced pretty similar in a pretty similar price bracket. So
right.
I kind of feel like Toyota's shooting themselves in the foot and putting out competitors of each other.
Yeah, it'll be interesting in January when we figure out the pricing and whatnot, and actually getting to drive it. And it'll be, I actually asked the Toyota representative, who I'm very close with. He's very, very cool. He actually doesn't live too far from you guys. And I was asking him, I was like, what is the difference between the 4Runner and the Land Cruiser? And his first response was the typical PR person of, we don't talk about future product, whatever. But he said that they basically serve two different demographics, where 4Runner is more camping and like fishing and outdoorsy lifestyle, and the Land Cruiser is more higher speed, rougher terrain. And I was like, okay. That didn't really answer my question, but that's what he told me. So,
and from a use case, like prior, obviously the new 4Runner is way different than prior ones, but looking at prior product line, the Land Cruiser and the 4Runner have always been very similar, with the Land Cruiser just being like a fancier version.
Yeah.
right.
So
I will say Toyota is the king of offering several vehicles that fill the same market. If you look at any of Toyota's overseas markets, they have there was in the 90s, there was the Corolla, Camry, Caldina, and Corona, which were all just small sedans that basically do the exact same thing.
And look almost identical.
Well. They look identical. I'll see like a Japanese Caldina and it's actually a Corolla, or vice versa, and all this stuff. Overseas, they make like 4 or 5 different minivans. There's the Town Ace and High Ace.
Yeah.
There's the Sienna, and then they had some other cruiser. I mean, it's just it's wild, the library of cars that they have. So we'll see. Maybe they know exactly what they're doing, and they're going to serve 2 different markets, or maybe it's just going to flop, and it's going to segregate the buying population. I mean, that's why they got rid of the Land Cruiser the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we'll see. Which technically the Land Cruiser we have now is the Land Cruiser Prado or whatever, but they still make a full size Land Cruiser elsewhere.
I just wish we could get. Do they have a diesel Land Cruiser in the U.S. yet, or no?
Nope. I don't think.
Man,
Toyota
I just wish
has
we could
any
get the freaking
diesel
diesels
at all. I'm trying to think.
I
mean,
think
there's no Tundra diesel.
They do.
There's no.
I think their Hilux has diesels, but those not higher in the States anyways.
Yeah, the Hilux definitely gets a diesel, but we don't get those here, which is always cool to go down to like Dallas or like southern Texas and you start seeing Hiluxes running around on Mexico plates.
Yeah.
I always take pictures of them because I think they're the coolest things in the world.
I used to live in Sierra Vista, Arizona. We see them all the time.
Oh
Um,
yeah, sure.
but yeah, the Prado, however you say it, that is offered in a diesel overseas. The Land Cruiser is offered as a diesel. The Land Cruiser 79, the pickup, that is offered with a diesel, and the Tacoma is offered with a diesel.
Really? Huh. Yeah,
That is what it looks like.
we don't even get
Oh,
non-hybrid Tacomas anymore. Every single Tacoma is a hybrid now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was Google's AI imagining something. The new Tacoma is not a diesel.
Okay, gotcha. I would imagine as such. But yeah, us here in America, we just hate diesels unless they're pickup trucks.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I truly do not understand it.
I think it all comes back to Dieselgate with Volkswagen. It's really where it all kind of falls back to.
Partially, I agree with you. I think that was probably the last nail in the coffin. But we also tried diesel cars here in the 80s with the Cadillacs and Oldsmobile diesels, and they were so god awful that I think from
I
the 80s on, no one really wanted them.
I don't think that I could say that GM's attempt to take a 350 and make it run on diesel was really a good indicator for how diesels work.
Yeah, well, but that's the thing. That's what everyone remembers. So even
Right,
if it was
right.
a failure, everyone remembers that being a failure. And automakers were just trying to do whatever they could to get around the emission standards of the 70s and 80s, and they thought diesel
Right.
was the answer. And at least the way that they did it, it most certainly was not.
Have you ever gotten to drive one of those 70s or 80s GM diesels?
No, I have been searching for one for so long. No one has, and the only ones that I've been offered, the person's like, "Oh, I swapped it to just a small block Chevy." So no one keeps the diesel option because they were just so unreliable.
I just want to hear an honest review. And I know you would give an honest review. I want an honest review on how one works.
Oh, you know what? Okay, it wasn't. I drove a 1984 Lincoln Continental that was diesel.
That's pretty sick.
Do you know what engine was in it?
You said Lincoln Continental.
Don't look it up. Don't look
What
it
year
up.
was it?
1984.
I want. What year was it?
1984.
Was it a 6.9?
No, it was not an IDI, although that would have been beyond badass.
What was it?
I'll give you a hint. It was not made by Ford.
Cummins?
I'll give you another hint. It was not made in the U.S.
Isuzu.
Not Japan.
Man, I have no idea.
BMW straight six diesel turbo.
Oh my god, that actually sounds cool.
It was cool, and you know what's funny? It had a bigger turbo on it, and I couldn't tell. I mean, this thing was such a cinder block to drive. Very comfortable car, but they outsourced the Lincoln Continental to have a BMW straight six diesel turbo, factory turbo, non-intercooled, in the early 80s.
That is wild. Was it at least
one of the strangest?
No, it's BMW, so it wasn't reliable.
It was fine. I mean, it blew a ton of black smoke when I drove it, but pretty much any older diesel would, and it did have a bigger turbo, so I can't really fault it for that. But yeah, my buddy sent it to me. My buddy collects BMWs, and he was like, "Hey, I got something weird. It's a Continental." And I was like, "Oh, are you switching up your formula?" And he sent me a picture of the engine bay, and I was like, "Oh, you swapped it?" And he goes, "It's factory numbers matching." And I was like, "Holy crap!
Hell?
I didn't even know that thing existed." But yeah, so today you learned that the Continental came with a BMW diesel in the early 80s.
Huh.
You have a review of that?
Oh yeah, it's up on the channel. This was
I will have to watch that. That sounds ridiculous.
probably July 2023. Let me see if I can find it. June 2023. 1984 Lincoln Continental Turbo Diesel.
And topic of talking about diesel cars, I kind of wish you bought your Renegade that you spec'd out originally, Alex. That would have been fun.
Yeah, I should have bought that Renegade. So
Diesel?
back in, it was a diesel. Would have been 2017. Yeah, 27 would have been a 2017 Renegade.
Okay.
Or I would have bought it in 2017. Whatever. But anyways, it was I went to the dealership and I was looking at trading in. At the time, I had a Wrangler, and a 76 J4000, and I was just sick and tired of having cars that I always had to work on. So I was going to trade them in and get a brand new Renegade in bright yellow, Trailhawk, manual, with the diesel.
Jeez.
As far as I know, there's only one that exists.
Huh.
I ordered it. They had a list of all the options I could pick, and I picked all the options I wanted. They got the car in. I drove it one time and decided not to trade in my stuff.
Fair enough. I did not know that they even made those. Huh. Well, I just learned something today.
But I have never seen a diesel manual Renegade.
Yeah. Huh.
I've seen the diesel ones.
I did get into a fight at a wedding one time over the Mazda CX-5 diesel. This guy claimed that they were never ever sold here in the US, and I told him I drove one a week ago and he didn't believe me. And I think they sold like a couple of them in the US. 2019 only, I think. And they were only available on the top trim, so they were like 40 grand out the door. But they made diesel CX-5s and they sold horribly. To the point where the Mazda dealer that I borrowed it from actually asked me to do the video on it because they couldn't get it off their lot. And they were hoping that my video would like stir some attention to the vehicle. How did this video even do? 5,500 views. Not great after 4 years. But yeah. But yeah, so there are some weird diesel options out there.
I think that one was the 2.0, or maybe the one. I think it was a 2.0 diesel.
In the Renegade or CX-5?
Renegade.
Oh, okay. That has to be like European, like Renault or like Fiat 2.0, no?
Fiat, yep.
Okay. Well, the Renegade is just the Fiat 500X.
Exactly.
Trying to look here, like weird diesel. Oh, if you want to talk weird diesels, I drove a 2023 Cadillac Escalade diesel. That was weird.
That is weird.
That is weird.
Duramax?
IDI's. Yeah. It was that was a factory car that had 6 miles on it when I drove it. Drove great, but I don't know who in the Escalade market was looking for a diesel. Although it got like 30 miles to the gallon or something. Yeah.
You know, comparing that to like an Excursion, because there was a 7.3 and 6.0 in the Excursions, those would fit the same market. Just that Cadillac would be way newer.
Yeah. I typed in diesel on my channel, and 3 videos down from the Escalade is an 04 Excursion, which I think was the 6.0. I think.
Yeah, that would have been a 6.0.
Yeah. Let me see. I'm trying to see.
Man, I wish you could have drove my Power Stroke before I got rid of it.
Yeah, I know we had talked about doing that, and we never made the dates line up, unfortunately.
Because that thing was wild. And yeah, because it was always broken when you were free, and you were always busy when it wasn't broken.
Unfortunately, it happens a bit too much in this industry.
Because I mean, that thing was 500-ish horsepower on a factory transmission.
Jeez.
For a truck that should have made 190 horsepower.
Yeah, no kidding. I think it was probably screaming for dear life.
Yeah.
We went through 3 of them in like 4 months.
Oh my god.
We come pretty much pro at dropping transmissions and putting them back up.
Yeah, it's funny the skills you pick up without wanting to pick up. Life just throws them in your lap.
But that thing breaking the last time is the whole reason I bought the 4Runner, and that's been a really great journey.
Yeah, you know what? It leads to something better, right?
Even though it was went to Chicago to buy a 91 Taurus show or 93 Taurus show, whatever the Bring a Trailer, that Bring a Trailer Taurus show. I went there to buy it,
good.
and it had like 70,000 miles on it. And as I'm pulling into the guy's driveway, the car's going the other direction with its new owner.
No.
Mind you, I had just driven 6 hours to buy this car.
Yeah. Oh, geez, I would have lost it. That's insane.
So then I just went to Milwaukee and ended up with a rotted out 4Runner. You know, it all worked out.
Everything has a silver lining at some point, right?
But all right, dude, that almost an hour and a half. So that is definitely, that's our episode and then some.
Yeah.
Only one power outage, not bad.
It has been awesome catching up with you and awesome getting your story out there for our listeners. Hopefully we get our handful of listeners over to your channel.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I'll put it out on my socials, whatever that means these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. Well,
awesome.
later.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Yep.